it's really hard to be on social media, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, really anywhere on the internet, without kind of getting wrapped up in the constant rumors and the conversation about new gear that's coming out, features we want on all these different cameras, the type of lenses and everything like that. And it really kind of gets to the point where you start to get a little bit burnt out on following the industry to some degree. We all can fall victim to it. It's very easy to want this next feature on this next camera, or everybody has this idea of the perfect camera. And as everybody knows who's been in photography for any amount of time, there is no such thing, because there's always one little thing that another manufacturer or another camera, even within your favorite manufacturer, has that your particular body that you like the most doesn't have. And, recently I shoot with the Canon R5, and recently the conversation about having a R5 version 2 come out kind of stalled, and then it turned into having a firmware update that's going to possibly have some rather interesting features. And one of those features actually was released today, here on March 30th, 2023, and that was the IBIS high definition images. And what that basically does is it's basically pixel shifting or sensor shifting, whatever type of site you follow for that type of information. So pixel shifting is basically just taking the sensor and just moving it slightly, and basically creating an image 9 times larger than actually what the sensor is. So in the situation of a Canon R5, it takes basically 403 megapixel images from a 45 megapixel sensor. On paper, it actually sounds like an incredible idea. It actually, kind of is neat. So I decided to actually add the firmware to my camera today and actually take a picture. And it does do fairly decent. It is just JPEG. I'm a RAW shooter. Most photographers probably are, who buys a camera like this. But I thought it was kind of interesting to do, just to kind of see if maybe it was so impressive that the RAW feature wasn't something missing. And as it turned out, it actually does a pretty dang good job. Now, the downside to it is ultimately that it has a great limitation. The objects in the frame just absolutely cannot move, because it's taking 9 pictures within what I found to be about 7/8 of a second. If you slow the shutter down, obviously it's going to take longer than that, but no matter how fast I got the shutter, it was taking anywhere between about 0.85 and 0.9 seconds for it to actually shoot all 9 pictures. Then it takes another 8.5 seconds to process all those images and turn it into one. And then when you get back on the computer and you start pixel peeping, some of the photos turned out phenomenal. But if there was a slight vibration with that camera, or if, the floor caused the tripod to move a little bit, or there's a little breeze, anything like that, there was some situations where it was kind of, okay, I can't use this. Now, could you get by with it on social media? Absolutely. But why would you need to shoot 400 megapixels for social media? I'll never understand that, unless you're just needing to crop something greatly because you can't get close enough, or perhaps you don't have a strong enough telephoto lens to get something in a frame. In those situations, you can definitely use it to get by. Just where I live in Kansas, going outside, shooting anything landscape, it's probably never going to work, because we have wind basically 367 days a year. It's kind of crazy like that. But there's going to be some situations where I think it'd be kind of cool to maybe do it. But I would never really come to rely on it wholly. And even if I were going to go do it, I would still take a RAW shot, because I want to make sure I have a shot that I know I can work with. So when I did it also indoors, in fact, that's really all I did with it today. I did a few different tests indoors. There was times where I was absolutely sure the tripod was still. I even took a picture of my face, and I was sure that I was perfectly still for up to a second until it was done processing, and it still has weird artifacts because apparently either I slightly moved just a little bit, even though I couldn't tell, or something else. Maybe it was because lights were flickering. I don't really know, but there's some really weird things that was going on with that. So I know it really wouldn't be useful for any type of portraits, unless you could just sit there and try multiple shots and do it. But even then, with portraits, you're still going to only get an 8-bit photo, and most professional photographers, that's probably not going to cut it, because once you start playing with the highlights and the shadows, you're going to start to see some artifacting and some banding and stuff like that you really probably can't work with. But if you get the picture perfectly exposed, you have your scene entirely shot the way you want, you probably get away with it. But I would still like to caution you to be very careful in doing something like that. So, but it's just really kind of amazing the type of technology you do. And I think sometimes we get wrapped up in all that and we forget why we actually do what we do. People constantly on the internet, they're always watching these videos and they're not spending the time going out and shooting and actually embracing the hobby, the profession, the passion that you have for photography or video or even audio or anything like that. And I really encourage people to just stop doing that. I mean, I'm actually shooting this on a Canon EOS R. I'm going to use that camera until it basically dies. I do have my R5 that I use for portraits and a lot of things that I need the features for it to do. But I like the R in the sense that it has 30 megapixels. I had the 5D Mark IV before it, so I was used to that sensor and the kind of functionality of it. But, you know, really once you get above 24 megapixels, there's not a lot of demand for anything larger than that right now. Even TVs. I looked on B&H today. The cheapest TV they had for 8K was $2,000. They have it knocked down from $3,000 at 65 inches. And even at 65 inches, I mean, what is that? That's a little over 5 pixels per millimeter. 5 per millimeter. So that's over 160 dots per inch, which means you'd have to basically be licking the screen to see those pixels. So the demand for 8K is great. I like it in the industry of cinema. I like it in creating videos because you're kind of future-proofing it to some degree, but you also have incredible capabilities of cropping and then also increasing kind of the clarity by, you know, kind of smashing it down, oversampling, as it's called. So I like it in that regard, but as far as presenting it to the world and displaying it, I just don't think 8K is really something that we need yet. You know, 5K, 6K, somewhere in there would actually be great. I know that I like to do it divisible by or multiples of 4 as we go up with that. But I don't know. I don't know if we're going to ever actually need that. Now, in a theater, 8K would probably be amazing, but still, you're going to need someone to shoot the stuff in 8K. You know, if even film is being limited at resolutions like that, so all those old movies being, you know, recreated, it's going to be hard to do that. Plus, the storage is just insane. On the R5, the highest bit rate I believe I could shoot with basically makes it a little over 300 megabytes per second, which means on 500 gig drive, I got 22 minutes of video. You know, if you're shooting a wedding or you're shooting any other event, if you're doing interviews, I mean, you're absolutely like overdoing it if you shoot an interview at that kind of ProRes RAW bit rate and quality. But think about that. You go shoot a wedding, let's say you have 2 hours of footage. You know, I mean, you're looking at 3 terabytes just to store it all, and then you have to watch it. And most people's network is not rated at 2 gigabits per second to be able to handle that. In fact, it even needs more. You're going to need about 3 gigabits per second to be able to stream that. So you're going to have to work from a local hard drive. You're going to have proxy files. You're going to have to do all those types of things, which is actually not abnormal to do. But a lot of people getting into it, they don't have computers that can handle that. They probably don't have the storage space to do that. And so my advice to most of our others, especially the people just getting into photography, the younger people, or even the older people who's taking up as a hobby, don't get wrapped up in all the gear talk. I know I've been a victim of that. It's one of those things that could just make you forget why you're actually doing it. I've taken so many pictures with an R, a 5D, a 7D. My first digital camera was a Canon EOS 1D, the original one that was 4.1 megapixels. And compared to the 45 megapixels, even the 30 megapixels, it was nothing. But now it's nice knowing that, you know, 30 megapixels covers the 4K, so it's going to be larger than the resolution of your screen, so you're not losing anything there. But 403 megapixels, if you're reshooting art or if you're trying to document something that really needs very well preserved, it's absolutely a great thing. I mean, if you wanted to shoot a painting or something that you need to just kind of like Declaration of Independence, any of those types of things, that'd be amazing for those types of things. But for real world applications, 400 megapixels is even overkill for billboards. because people aren't going to be close enough to look at those. So my advice to you, just enjoy shooting. Don't get wrapped up to it all too much. You know, strive, enjoy them as they come out. But whatever camera you have now is probably good enough to get you by and actually have a very successful photography career, whether that be just for hobby work or if you're actually going to do it for pay. So enjoy watching those other photographers. They do actually create some really great content, but just remember to kind of put that with a grain of salt. They're getting their hands on the best gear, and they're taking advantage of people who knows that they're always wanting more, and they love to have the debate. It's like the greatest. It's like the GOAT talk constantly in sports. It's the most annoying thing ever because it makes people forget what's actually important. And that's what's happening right now a lot with photography, and it's going to go on for a while. So just find the camera within your budget, get you a good couple of lenses, and just go out and shoot. And that's my advice to everybody, especially if you're young out there. I know it's very tempting to want to be a gear snob, and I promise you, I've been a victim of that myself. I'm shooting this on a Sigma lens on a Canon EOS R body. I do have a Rode mic above me. I do have some decent gear, but I'm not shooting this on an R5. I'm not using Canon RF lens like I have on here, the 85 f1.2, because you don't need it for absolutely everything. You know, most of my portraits I shot until fairly recently, I did a lot on Sigma's 85 art lens. Phenomenal photos, not a single complaint. So it's really not necessarily the gear that you have, it's the person behind it. So focus on you, and the gear will come later, I promise. Thank you.